So now we know how we could get everything, but let's figure out how we can get something by ID or hit another route in our system or another method inside our route controller, right? So let's try and have a look at the drawing again. Now I actually showed you guys how you can get everything from the REST API by making an HTTP GET request with a GET method, right? And this is the URL you would hit. But what if we actually wanted to hit another function, and in this case the function I want to actually get to is this function right here instead. We got this one last time, let's get down to this one. And it kind of explains how to do it right here. API, values, and then an ID. Now the ID needs to be a number because we're actually going to automatically convert it into an int right here. So we wouldn't allow strings as ID. It needs to be a number right here. And right now notice the method is not doing anything, it's just returning value. We'll try to return the int value instead in a second. Let's try and actually launch this right now. So how do we get in there? Well, it said all I needed to do was actually use the same path and then put in the end a slash and then an ID. So let's write tree here and press enter. And there we go. Notice I'm not in this right here, which returned everything. I'm actually hitting the breakpoint down here. And all it's actually doing, this guy, which is the get by ID, is just returning the name value right now. It really doesn't matter. It's just a hard-coded string. I'll continue and you'll see now value in the browser. But what if I actually wanted to return the guy that I put in here? Yeah, now it's get tricky. It gets you tricky. Let's start up by actually shooting the request again, just for the fun of it here. I'm going to show you something awesome here. When you refresh and you're in debug, you can actually sometimes, I'm saying sometimes, write code directly. So I'm going to write the code right here directly without shutting down the program. And I'm going to just say plus ID right here because there's an int value. And then I'll just do something like this and I'll save this. And let's try and continue, and maybe, just maybe, it actually shows 3 in the end. So now if I put in 7 right here, oh, oops, continue. Sorry about that. Now if I put in 7 up here, there we go, it actually goes in here again and returns this time the ID of, you guessed it, 7. But what if I put in a string? What will actually happen? Well, go and test it, but let me just try and put DK in here, and it actually converted it anyway. It didn't give you an error. It just ended up with 0 because it couldn't convert into a string, so it just put in 0. So we'll get back 0. The ID didn't exist. You can do whatever you want here. What if we want to put in a string? Let's just do that as the final test here. Let me just, again, pause the program here so I can play around with the code. Jumping back to my controller. I'll put in a string here instead as ID. I know this is not the right way to do it, and it even complains right here that it might have to restart. Let me try and start it anyway. Let's try and stop it because it said I can't do the change. And this is kind of annoying, but you'll just have to live with Visual Studio here. I'll restart everything because now the ID is actually a string. Notice I have not done anything else. I just changed it from an int to a string just to have the capability of actually sending anything in here instead of an actual ID. To prove that to you, it launches, and right now mine is launching in Chrome. That's just because I picked Chrome as the developer tool. It pops up with something like this, explaining that you can actually use script debugging if you want to in Visual Studio using Chrome. We don't want to do that. And here it pops up getting everything right now because it hits the default page. Let me just continue. It pops up with these values. I put in anything else in the end, like hello. And I go into the other setup here, but now it's actually hello because it's allowed to put in a string now. So let's continue. Value equals hello, right? So now you just change the get method. It should of course stay with an int, and I'll put it back now, or a long value depending on how much information you have in your IDs. But it is possible. This is how simple it is to actually change your different parameters that you're getting from the outside. So this is what we call a parameter inside this current setup. See you next time. We will play around with another piece of the puzzle, which is going to be one of the other methods. Have fun.